Good to see you all here. I am Michael Taylor, Program Coordinator for MySemi, Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration. Come on in. Um, we will be getting started right now. This workshop is on the realities of reentry. Um, I believe, people are still coming in, so I'm going to let it kind of die down a little bit before we're in the mid swing and people show up, right? But the realities of reentry, I'm going to take you guys through a few things, get through the slides. So, of course, tell you a little bit about MySemi. Some people may be already familiar with MySemi. Some of you may not have ever heard of us. So, talk to you a little bit about that, as well as who I am, right? And why you should care what my perspective or what I know about reentry is. Also, though, we'll hit some of the challenges of reentry, what reentry looks like today. Also, some of the advocacy efforts that are happening in Michigan, as well as a call to action, what you can do now and what you can do in the long term. Oops, my bad. Getting a hold of the control switches. So about MySemi. So we are a collaborative nonprofit organization. We support the people and organizations on the front lines. What that means is there are a lot of us working in this work, trying to end mass incarceration, trying to do the work to help. And a lot of times we get focused into silos, right? You're working with your head down and you don't look up. You're just trying to get the work done. Well, what happens is we're doing a lot of things and stepping on each other's toes and not using all of our power and uniting the way that we could. So our job at MySemi is to kind of jump in the center and unite people where they could be working together to increase the power, right? Utilize resources, share resources, uh, funding, information, whatever, best practices, whatever it takes to get the job done, right? We work on four main pillars, which are prevention, right? We will work to improve public safety and prevent incarceration. Sentencing, we want to reduce the length of stay and end excessive prison sentencing. Programming, that's one that's near and dear to myself. Expanding the quality and access to programming in prison and other rehabilitative activities, right? Because people with long indeterminate sentences don't often get the opportunities to get involved in programming that could be used to better themselves while inside, right? Or if you do have those type of sentences and get access to the programming, it's right before you come home, wherein you could have been building on some of these tools that they give you for some time where the practice becomes normal, right? And then the topic of today is reentry, to improve the supports and remove barriers to successful reentry. Now, we also have a couple of sub pillars that we work on over at MySemi, and that is narrative change, right? Because a lot of what happens with policy and in society is based on the way people perceive things, right? Your knowledge, what you know, is what you know, and until you know more, you can't really do more. Once you know better, you can do better, right? And then the next is reinvestment, promoting policies that reinvest savings into those communities that are affected by crime and imprisonment, right? Because every community that is built in rural communities because of mass incarceration is also taking from communities that could just be rebuilt and would prevent those problems that are systemic that happen to us anyway, right? So that's MySemi. And myself, matter of fact, let me push forward because another one. So I'm the program coordinator at MySemi. What that means is I do a lot of the networking, I do a lot of the events, the hostings, I organize events in order to just make sure that we're getting interconnected, right? My responsibility is talking to people. I also am directly impacted. I served 17 years with the Michigan Department of Corrections. I went when I was 18 years old. I was released from prison when I was 33 years old, and then I served 2 more years on parole till I was 35 years old. I've been home almost 10 years. It will be 10 years in August. So in that 10 years, I've had some experiences with reentry, right? I'm also an entrepreneur. So I've worked in reentry positions, and I call them reentry positions because it's like the bottom of the barrel type of jobs, right? It's like wherever they'll let you in, I'll get in. But I've also worked in corporate America. I worked at radio for a few years, And then I've also owned clothing stores. I own a record company and also do, as you see next, I'm a podcast host. So I host a podcast called 17 Winters, where I discuss my reentry challenges and those of others that have gone through similar experiences. And recently, I authored a book called First 10 Moves to Forever Freedom, which I have copies of for you guys in the back there. And the book basically outlines my journey, and I give some tools of how I was able to overcome some of the challenges that I faced since my release. So that gives you a little background in me, so you can see I have some experience in reentry. Now, this next slide is about your why, right? Everybody's here for a reason. What brought you here? Why is reentry even important to you? Now, I don't have necessarily time to ask everybody, right? So what I wanted us to do was I wanted to invite you all into an exercise. And I call it an empathetic imagination exercise, where just take a couple of seconds. I'm gonna slow it down a little bit, and I want to invite everybody to just like sit back. I know we got a little bit of background noise outside, right? So it's kind of hard to focus and do a meditation type of thing, but like try to cancel it out and close your eyes for a minute, or at least I like to invite you to close your eyes. I understand that some of us are formerly incarcerated, might have triggers or anything like that. So closing your eyes is not for you. Don't do it. But if you can, close your eyes briefly, just for a few moments, and take a couple of deep breaths, right? Like 7 seconds in, hold, and then blow out. And I want you to, while you are in this state, imagine a time when you felt out of place. Think of a time when you were, not in your element. A lot of people in the room are college students, have been through the process of getting enrolled and starting a new journey in life, right? As an 18-year-old coming out of your parents' house. Think about that time. What were some of those feelings that you felt? What were the emotions that you experienced? Some of the obstacles you faced? Now, sit with that for a couple of minutes. You can open your eyes. And just a few of you, by raise of hands, just kind of tell me your why. Tell me what you felt. Tell me kind of your experience. And I'll tell you mine while you're thinking, right? So imagine being 18 years old. Before I went to prison, had never even paid a bill. I never even seen the bills, right? The bills came in the house. Mom got them. She took care of them. But I committed a violent crime that got me sent to prison. After 15 years in prison, I got out 33 years old. Some of the struggles that you have when you're just trying to enroll in school, right? Just finding out what counselors that you need to speak to. What department do you go to? Pulling up here today, I was looking around at all of the buildings as I pulled in and was like, man, this is a lot to try to navigate. I'm grown. I've been here a while, right? So think about that experience of when you were out of place and trying to figure something out and not having anybody to help you with that, right? Because in college, they have counselors and like people that assist you. But in real life, that's not a thing. Imagine being 33 years old trying to figure out how to pay a bill for the first time in your life, right? So, and before I move on, did anybody want to raise a hand and like give a why you decided to come today? I want to speed past that. If not, that's okay too. Cool. So, challenges. So, what I thought about when I was invited here was like, what challenges could I talk about that may not have been the average challenge that you would already like, right? So people know when you come home from prison, you need a house, right? You need somewhere to stay. You need employment. You need, right? There's things that automatically come to mind, right? But what you don't think about are some of the challenges of technology. So I used the little monkey guy, right? Because that's literally how I felt every time I tried to use a computer coming home. Think about the fact that when you come home from prison after having been gone 10, 15 years, things have changed, right? Going to get your driver's license isn't the same as walking into the Secretary of State as it was in the 90s. Nowadays, if you don't have a phone or if you don't have a computer, then you can't even set up an appointment to do anything, right? When you go to restaurants, if you're taken to a restaurant to dinner, I remember that happened one of my first times going out to dinner, and I sat at a restaurant looking for the menu, and it never came. So I sat there for maybe 20 minutes trying to figure out when is somebody gonna come talk to me about the food? Well, the food is on the menu, and the menu is a picture of a QR code on the table. If you don't know, you don't know, right? So that was one of the big challenges that I faced, was like just having to do everything digitally, having to use a computer or a phone to do every single thing that you do in life, right? Next one though, money. Now, by a show of hands, how many of us had trouble with budgeting in general, right? Go to prison or not, right? Having trouble with budgeting and like keeping that money in your pocket versus spending it somewhere, right? Well, one of my biggest challenges coming home was the inability to get a bank account. I couldn't get a bank account. My mom had been banking with Chase and Wells Fargo for probably 20 years. And she brought me to Chase and sat me in front of the people and they, Mrs. Taylor, oh, come on, and yeah, your son can get an account here. And they, until it was time for my ID, right? And you don't walk out of prison with an ID like this. You don't get your driver's license. So I have a driver's license now, right? But when I got out of prison, I had a little orange ID, and it had a picture of me like a mugshot from when I was in prison. So, it's already embarrassing to have to pull that out and say, here, right? So I slide it across the table. That's the way that I identify myself. And they say, well, where'd you get this from? I don't recognize this. Oh, I see. I'll be right back. I'll talk to my manager. And of course, the manager never shows up, but the lady sits down and she's very nice about it. Says, well, at this time, Michael, we're not going to be able to offer you an account because of your criminal history. Now, I didn't go to jail for like doing anything with bank fraud or anything. So what about my criminal history would prevent me from getting a bank account? So I just thought it was one bank. But then we went to the other one. We went to Wells Fargo. And the same thing happened. And Bank of America happened. And I realized that nobody wanted to bank with me, right? So eventually I was able to get a bank account, right? It took me to go through some hoops. I had to manipulate some things, but that's a challenge that a lot of people face that I don't think many people understand for a person coming home. Also, the use of debit cards. Yes. Neither do I. Neither do I. And it's a challenge that still exists today. It's not a thing that stopped. I'm not. I honestly couldn't tell you if the driver's license would have changed it. I know I was able to get in. The way that I actually was able to get in is my little sister added me as an authorized user onto her credit account, and after a month of using her credit account, she just was able to like grandfather me into her bank account, and then they allowed me to open a separate account, and then I had a banking relationship that I could start. And when I about 6 years ago, banking institutions started to be more proactive when it comes to allowing people to bank, but it's still a challenge when it comes to major banking institutions. So yeah, hey, I don't know what it is about the money in my crime, but there was definitely a connection there. Just that's for sure. That makes sense. And mind you, in my case specifically, I went to prison at 18, right around that time when they start sending you the credit cards when you go to college and you start to mess up your credit. I got locked up right before that started happening, so I didn't have anything. I was at a blank credit score, zero. And then the budgeting part, right? So there are two levels to this budgeting thing from the reentry perspective. One is just a criminal mentality, right? So I came from a mentality where you hustle all winter and then you blow it all summer. And after that becomes a cycle of behavior, it's hard to break that because the money, you've heard the saying in the streets, the money goes as quickly as it comes, right? So you're used to the easy come, easy go lifestyle. And then the second thing was adjusting to bills. I didn't understand billing cycles. I didn't understand what it looks like for, okay, you pay this bill this day, this month, it comes back around that same day next month. So it was like, okay, I got this paycheck and I just paid all the bills. Why did another bill come next week and I don't get paid this week? I don't understand that. It took me about 2 years before I started to really understand how billing cycles work and how to try to organize them to be in certain times of the month. So those were major challenges for me personally. And then lastly, and I think probably the heaviest for myself, um, cultural and familial dynamic changes. So I got this meme from something that we see on social media around New Year's every year, right? Everybody talks about how last year was a little rougher than, and we don't know what to do moving forward, right? I don't know if 2025 is going to be good to me, right? Imagine leaving the streets in 2000 and wondering if 2025 will be good to you, right? So the idea of having to come back home into a new world and also be a new person in that new world is double scary. Because the new world alone means, man, I have to fit in here and I don't really know how things work here. On top of having to fit in, I have to also fit into the guidelines of the world that I didn't fit into already. Because I got here into prison because I didn't really fit in those parameters, right? So now I'm double heavy with another addition of trying to fit back into your family. So of course your family loves you, right? Of course your family misses you. Of course they want you back, but they don't really know how to deal with you. And you don't know how to deal with them because a hole was left in the family when you left. And they filled that hole, whether it be with activity or just with the way that things have to go, right? Because if you were the breadwinner, say, and now grandma has to do all the work or uncle has to do all the work, you no longer fit in that position. But you come home thinking that you're still big brother. I came home, I was the oldest, so everyone always looked to me. When I came home, I thought everyone would still be looking to me. So there was added pressure on me from thinking that I'm supposed to be something for everybody else, which caused another challenge inside of our family because my little brother was saying, bro, I don't need you to be the leader of the family. I need you to get yourself together. We need you to just be able to stay here. Oh, man. Talking too long. Okay, I don't know how to get back in, but control tab. Thank you. Oh, okay, that might be happening. I might have to go back in the call. Hmm, okay. Bada bing. And we're back. And we're back. So, um, one of the heavy feelings I put it at the bottom. I'm better off inside. You wouldn't think that anybody would say that they would be better off in prison, right? But after so long, you kind of fit in better there. At least that's what you think, and you wrestle with that. And the main reason that I wanted to highlight that is because I believe that it is a real feeling, right? But it's silenced. No one talks about it. Even amongst those of us who have been there, right? Nobody actually says, bro, what do you feel like when, or what do you do when you get that feeling? It's just kind of something that's untalked about. But this is a real thing that's happening amongst you, and people are dealing with it where they're feeling like, man, I'm so out of place here. I could just go back and I know how that works, right? At least that. I know how that works. And out here, the unpredictability can become a challenge that could lead somebody back into the penitentiary. So, Oops, I skipped one. Let me go back. So I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the advocacy efforts that are happening right now, right? Um, to help ease some of these challenges and some of the frustrations of reentry, right? So here are some statistics from Nation Outside, which is a peer-led organization of formerly incarcerated individuals who help with reentry. Um, but they give us some information here. So peer-led reentry, 22.7% is Michigan's average recidivism rate in 2024. But 2.7% of the people in Tipler have reoffended. So basically, what is that, about 10% of the people compared to what Michigan's average recidivism rate is. Almost a quarter of the people that are released every year go back to jail. 1,316 out of 5,798 people who move to parole in Michigan are likely to reoffend. So when they say move to parole, I want people to understand that like parole is not freedom. We had a conversation earlier about that. People assume that, man, you got out, so now you're home now, right? But your life is literally still on a string. There's so many small things that could lead you back to prison. Not saying that people don't like make mistakes or even make bad decisions that get themselves back in trouble, but sometimes it's just technical violations that could get you back in prison. I was late for this meeting too many times, and I must not have learned my lesson, so they sent me back to prison. Yes, ma'am. So you're talking about a whole nother workshop, right? But yes, there is a certain level of monies attached to supervision. They call them the supervision fees. Depending on what the stipulations were with your case and circumstances, you could be paying anything from tether fees, monitoring fees, to monthly fees, to your probation, to paying to drop, to paying to take classes, to, mind you, you also have to maintain employment, and you have to also maintain certain other levels of what is the word that I would use to describe that? Certain levels of um, personal cleanliness. Every parolee is issued have to adhere to those. Yes, sir. For sure, for sure. And those stipulations are compounded with your life activities, right? You have to actually live life as well and maintain all of those things. And any one plate that you allow to fall could be your entryway back into prison. Yeah, see you after. Just to highlight those stipulations, in Wisconsin, a parole agent can deny you partner. Wow. So that's how difficult parole can be. It can be. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So in Milwaukee, there are minimum return, like when you're on. So it's a standard 32. Standard 32, and more can be added. Mm-hmm. How many are there in? You know what? I did not even look at what our standard numbers are before this. I don't know what our standard numbers are, but I know we're somewhere like that, because I know in mine it was like 42 stipulations. I had all type of not contacting with, yeah, because you will have programs that you have to be in, but then you can't have any contact with other felons, right? So like it's impossible to do the program and not contact other felons. But these are things that could be, depending. It's also becoming a challenge right now that we're working on, and this was not even part of it, but it's a challenge because I work with Nation Outside, that are Tipler uh, uh, associates, or people that are clients for Tipler, right? Which we'll get into next. They're not able to work with us because the stipulation says no talking to felons. Well, Tipler is peer-led reentry work, right? So we have to be felons talking to felons in reentry. It's best for us to deal with each other because we know best what you need, right? So that is actually a challenge that we're working on right now, trying to figure out because specifically in Ingham County, the parole officers are telling people, well, you can't go to Nation Outside, even chapter meetings where we talk and organize. Well, if you can't go to the chapter meetings because there are felons, but this is also an organization that the MDLC partners with for offender services reentry, right? So there are a lot of dynamics like that that can confuse it and make it hard to come home and be productive. Because you ever gotten to the point where you felt so overwhelmed you just don't do nothing, right? Mm-hmm. It is something that's being worked on, but I would definitely be interested in like having further conversations with you guys. Yeah, for sure. For sure, we need to get together about that. Uh, and then lastly, through the partnership between the Nation Outside and the Michigan Department of Corrections, Tipler has extended its reach to 7 counties across Michigan and enhanced access to critical reentry services, breaking down barriers and contributing to safer, more productive communities. So, again, it's trauma-led, trauma-informed, peer-led reentry, right? That's what Tipler means. These are people who have been to prison, come home from prison, re-entered safely, and are assisting others. But again, the challenge of the parole stipulations. Uh, I also wanted to highlight a couple of other organizations that do similar work to Nation Outside, which is peer-led reentry. They're not as large, but SLAP, Starting Life After Prison. This was started by a sister named Dominica Charday in Kalamazoo, Michigan. She specifically works with women coming out of Women's Huron Valley. So I'm not sure how her process is, but she goes and picks up women from Women's Huron Valley and helps them get whatever they need for their like immediate return. And then similarly, A Brighter Way does the same thing here. This is Washtenaw County, right? Ann Arbor. Brighter Way does the same thing here, and they will be branching into Ingham County, which is where I am in Lansing, Michigan. They'll be doing that this summer. So those are a couple of other people that are doing some of the similar work and reentry. Now, I wanted to speak on a few of the advocacy efforts that were happening here in Michigan. Few near and dear to me is the Fair Chancing Housing, Fair Chance Housing. So, announcement: I was able to secure my first lease since being released from prison in the beginning of March. So I'll be paying rent next month for the first time. Thank you. Um, which as I started, I said that like employment and housing are big challenges, but they're kind of challenges that everybody assumes, right? We all know about those. But I don't think people understand how serious the housing challenge really can be. Like I said, I've been home almost 10 years. Um, I'm a professional. I got a pretty decent credit score. I make pretty decent money. There should be no barrier for me to be able to take care of my children. Thankfully, I had a grandmother who owned real estate, and I was able to buy a home. So I actually own a home that we've been living in, but the home is really small. It's like a little 2-bedroom, and I got 2 toddlers and a 14-year-old and a fiance, right? So like we needed more house, and we're not ready to buy the next house. So I was looking for something that I could lease for a year or two, as while I'm getting myself together, right? And boy, was it hard. I'm talking about downright impossible hard, to the point where it was like slumlord or nothing. And that shouldn't be the choice. Like, I'm a citizen. I made a decision. I made bad choice, right? I served my time. but I still deserve to be able to live. So I still deserve for my toddlers to be able to play in the backyard and not have to be like in the worst neighborhood that we can find, right? So fair chance housing is a big deal to me. We've been working on this. It has been pushed by Nation Outside and the Vera Institute of Justice mainly, but of course my semi has backed it as well. The Fair Chance Access to Housing Act, long advocated for by the Vera Institute of Justice and Nation Outside, will reduce landlord discrimination and help people with conviction histories access rental housing. More than 100 organizations have submitted a letter to Michigan's elected leaders in order to basically get them to hop on the HB 4878. So that's something I want you guys to be paying attention to as well. Another thing, my semi, us and our partners have developed a comprehensive budget to recommendations to focus on 3 critical areas. We sent these recommendations to Governor Gretsch, Big Gretsch, to focus on 3 areas: violence prevention, funding juvenile defense standards, supporting the bipartisan sentencing commission, and maintaining community violence intervention programs. These things are big because ending mass incarceration starts with the systemic issues that are affecting the community outright, right? So if we can stop what's happening before they go, it it cuts the pipeline, right, from them having to go in and then be re-entered into society. So like that's the first thing. Next is rehabilitation, eliminating counterproductive medical co-pays because that's become a big one in Michigan, expanding educational opportunities in prison, and ensuring access to quality appellate defense. The expanding educational opportunities in Michigan is one of the focal points for myself personally, as you heard down there with the AFSC panel. Women in Huron Valley have not had access to a lot of those educational opportunities. Men's programming it's terrible all around the board, right? But the men have had more access than the women. So I'm a big advocate for like raising that and bringing fairness across the board. And then lastly, of course, reentry support. Investing in transitional healthcare and peer-led reentry services that reduce recidivism and build safer communities. And when we say reinvesting, we mean like we've seen situations where the OS housing is a shack somewhere in a rural area where a person doesn't even have access to like Uber, right? It's just like, you're here, here's your packet of reentry stuff. Don't go to jail anymore, right? And bless you. And that is not reentry, right? So we need more robust access to resources for these peer-led and other organizations that are actually helping out here. And then the call to action, what can you do, right? So in the short term, there's stuff happening right around you, right? And all it takes is for you to just add your little bit of effort. We're not asking you to do all of the lifting. If everybody does a lot, nobody has if everybody does a little, nobody has to do a lot. So join advocacy efforts. Get involved in legislation, volunteer for organizations or things going on in your community that could help. Share resources, share information, connections, and then of course narrative change, right? Part of that is empathy. It's recognizing that we are all individuals. I remember I was inside of a program and we talked about the difference between guilt and shame, right? And guilt being more of, I did something bad and I feel bad. But shame being like, I am that bad thing that I did, right? And that kind of is what it feels like having a felony in Michigan. Or I guess in America, right? It's like, I'm a felon, but I'm not. I'm a person. And I committed a felony, but I'm also doing a lot of other things that are positive in the community. And if we all share in the empathy and recognizing that we're just individuals and the crime could be committed, laws change every day. What you did yesterday could become a crime tomorrow based on the policies that's instituted in the legislature, right? So like being empathetic to individuals and recognizing that we all have a struggle and we all come from somewhere. That's stuff that we can do right now, right? Long term though, you are also a lot of the people that will be in positions of power, right? Like we're in a society where we're at a college. you're going to be people who are going to be able to hire. You're going to be landlords. You're going to be friends with landlords or friends with policymakers, or you're going to be in position where you can affect the way that people perceive other individuals who you know have come to this situation. So like one of them is like, just do those things. Since you know better, do better. Hire people, influence others, friends that you have, people that maybe don't understand, help them get a better understanding. Speak truth to power, of course, right? If you know better, do better. Continue pushing narrative change and sharing in the resources. And then how to contact me. So my podcast is called 17 Winters Podcast. This is my email at michael@mysemi.org. I don't know why I put my phone number on there, but I did. The book is called First 10 Moves to Forever Freedom. I don't know if people in this room necessarily need this book, right? But you may know someone who needs this book. And the book objective when I wrote it, I was not writing my memoir. I was not writing a book that I thought I would get rich from. I wrote a book that I felt like would be able to help people to get a better understanding, right? So I do have copies of the book on hand back there. And then lastly, follow me on social media or jump on the podcast and take a listen. I will be moving into video episodes as well. Right now it's mainly audio. So anywhere you go, 17 Winters Podcast, you can find me. And then upcoming events. So April 10th, MySemi is doing the Advocacy and Budget Priorities meeting. It is going to be a virtual meeting from 7 to 8:30 p.m. MichiganCollaborative.org events is where you'll find basically this list of all of these things. So if you forget or any of these things I mentioned, they will be listed there. April 14th. I encourage all of you to make your way down to Lansing, Michigan. We are doing a Tipler reentry convening hosted by Nation Outside at the Lansing Center from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now, this convening is really cool. We just did a walkthrough or like a dress rehearsal, and it is going to be a mock reentry. So we will be taking the positions of, there will be people sitting in the tables of all of the positions you will be going to when you come home. So Social Security office, the parole office, healthcare, everything all of the services and things that you would see when you will be released from prison. And there will be another portion of people that are going through that, and you get to simulate what it feels like. So it's going to be dope. It's going to be a big deal. Like I said, it's all day in Lansing. The Tipler reentry convening. That's April 14th. May 6th, Citizens for Prison Reform is doing Legislative Day in Lansing. So that's going to be an all-day event. May 13th is the Prison Programming Providers Table Part 2. In Reach and Relationship Building, I will be hosting that as well. That is a virtual meeting as well, 12 to 2 p.m. So on that, we talk about just different ways to get programming in the prison or how to effectively institute programming or different strategies of like how to build this prison programming up, right? So, and then lastly, we have also a communications roundtable in partnership with Progress Michigan that is on spokesperson training, because one thing we do terribly when it comes to legislation and policy is our messaging sucks. One thing Donald Trump does well is put out his messages, right? He gets his quips out and you understand where he's trying to go, and it's like, it runs. Well, we're not as good at that. So like, this is going to be a little training on helping us to get our messaging together so that as we're moving forward, we can get more people to get involved, get invested, right? And then lastly, thank you. Thank you all for coming out, and I appreciate you participating. And are there any questions? This is the time for open mic. Any questions that you have? We got a few minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Have the update on I know you got a hearing last fall, and then everything fell apart in the fall with votes.
Yeah, so that is where we are. Everything fell apart, and we are reorganizing. Actually, yeah, my man gone. Tony Gant would be the point person to talk to about that. But yeah, as of right now, we are trying to figure out which direction to go to try to get it, because we're thinking it may have to become a like a local thing where each individual county attacks it, and then we kind of try to pull it as a large thing again. Because trying to bring it as one overall policy change did not work. There are a couple of counties that are like Jackson, just made some major reforms. Somebody else did as well. Flint, yep, Flint also did some major reforms. So we're thinking maybe attacking it from that level and coming back. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
This mass incarceration of this is the result. So all those people that got out, they now have a criminal record. They're facing all the problems, and the punishment never seems.
Never seems to.
And talking about narrative change, I heard in Germany that it's illegal to discriminate against someone because of their. That's really what we should be going to. You paid your time, you've done your sentences, that should be it. You should be able to move on.
Yes, ma'am.
You should be able to get housing, you should be able to get a job. Yes. Japan because of something that happened.
For sure, 100%. 100%. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I was thinking, especially in terms of also just healthcare.
Yes, sir.
You got a bad bum knee, you got a bad back.
So that is kind of a tricky thing because there is some access to healthcare coming home, but then there is knowing where the access is that is the bigger challenge. Because like I've taken myself, right? I'm not even sure. I believe it was my mom that did it, right? But I came home and was plugged right into medical care, and I've been good, right, until I started having jobs that would provide such, right. But I've also had people who come home and don't know the first place to fill out the application to get anything, right. So I guess part of what the way to bridge that gap, so to speak, would be the education piece. It would have to be in, and that is why I ask, or I don't know what I was doing. If the call to action was that we need to have more resources allocated to these type of Tipler and Nation Outside type of reentry, where people can step in between and navigate for those who are returning, who don't know. In large part, a lot of challenges just fright that coming home to a new world can paralyze you. And that paralyzed mentality stops you from being able to do anything. So a lot of times you just need a pull. You need somebody that's willing to like grab your hand. Bring you. Yes, sir. Um, Good question. So I first and foremost believe that success is overcoming whatever difficulty that I face. So in that sense, I am so successful because of perseverance and because I have had assistance along the way. Um, Although a lot of these reforms, a lot of these programs, a lot of the things that I talked to you guys about today did not exist 10 years ago when I was released. Um, I like to consider myself one of the few. More people are not like me than are coming home from prison. So I was able to be guided while inside by some elders who cared about, Tony alluded to it a little bit. They cared about my well-being. They wanted me to, they knew that I would be able to get out again and they probably wouldn't. And therefore they put everything they could in me. So I was given that. And that carried me until I was able to run into other people who had been in this type of work or who had experience who could help guide me through different things, right? So that was mine. Others, we have me and people like me, people like Nation of Outside who are stepping in the gap for those people coming home now.
I would just like to add to that, I work for a nonprofit. We now have maybe 5 people who are average 5 years in jail who came to our programming and over the years continuing this programming today, and employees and now lead some of the program. So the point is, people coming out of incarceration, the community is going to have to nurture.
Yes, sir.
That's what our communities don't understand.
Yes, sir.
And they think that, going to jail is a failure of morality, but it's really a failure of our system, community, not supporting them, whether it's absent father, absence of jobs, so fathers can be in leadership in their family. And to return them, you just really got to put resources to return them there, not just say, you're free now, go out and do the right thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, 100%. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, is there any education program provided for prisoners before they get out, right before they're getting out?
Yes.
So they're told you're gonna be getting out here, so is there anything?
Yes, there are. So the way that it works in the MDLC, you have to be recommended for most programs through your RGC recommendations, which is the RGC is the Regional Reception Guidance Center. Yep. So your recommendations will tell them that. So if you got 10 years to do, right, it'll tell them that 9 years, 6 months from his release date, he should be inside of these programs. The problem with that is I have been antisocial for 9 years, 6 months. 6 months of any program won't help me. Not when I'm about to be released to the society, right? So yeah, there are tools that you're given, right? But if I'm antisocial and I'm not given these tools earlier on, then I'm not able to practice them for very long before it's time to actually use them in the real world. And that's one of the challenges of inside. That's why I was talking about how programming is a big deal to me too. Now, there are programs that if you have the wherewithal, the discipline, the determination to get yourself involved in them on your own, there are peer-led programs inside, and there are other programs that you can sign up for. But those take another level of ingenuity that most people don't have. Most people kind of need a little bit of a pull, a push, something to help ignite them. That's the thing as well.
Go to prison, go to a federal one, federal prisons offer far more programming and state programming.
For sure.
Even though don't go to prison.
Right, no.
But where federal programs are concerned, they give you 2 years of programming.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the social workers walk you through the time that you are ready and ensuring that you get housing. So that's why people say, go to a federal prison.
Yeah, right. Michigan Department of Corrections is not as preparatory when it comes to your release. If there are no other questions, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Oh, if you would like to get a copy of the book, you had something you wanted to say about it, bro? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you all. I appreciate you all. I don't know what to do with that. That's not my computer. That's not even my Google account. I just emailed them my slides. So I'm not even sure whose Google